Beyond death, beyond evil, beyond the dreaded gates of hell. Welcome to I Hope You Suffer. This is episode, I'm gonna guess 188, I don't remember, of I Hope You Suffer. My name is Nathan, no Kit or Katie, so I am joined by Lori from Queer Horror Cult.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, getting to talk about some good shit.
Oh, yes. Yes, some of my favorite shit.
Yeah, as opposed like Kit and I recorded last night on that fucking Bigfoot versus Megalodon movie, and it was a bummer.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like anytime I see your Instagram posts and some of the things you're walking, it feels like rubbernecking a traffic accident where you're just like, oh, I can't look away. It's horrifying because
Like
it's so traumatic for everyone involved.
the
But
the fucking problem is too is I'm always like, well, I'm not gonna understand this because I don't watch the director's other like 8 movies, so
yeah, you commit.
like that. So like we kind of talked about it. That episode will come out before this one. Like it was Bigfoot versus Megalodon was like the third movie out of 5.
Oh,
And so Kit watched it. Kit was like, I don't know what the fuck any of this is. I don't know what's going on. And I was trying to explain it to him, but the other 4 movies don't make any sense. Because it's like, it was like they computer animated one movie and then just reused all that footage for the other 4.
oh
It was
dear.
just new
That's
dialogue. And I was just like, I don't know. Really, none of it makes sense, but they get progressively hornier for some reason.
well, I'm glad they're raising the stakes at least.
It's brutal. it
Uh, sounds it.
Somehow the Trump versus the Illuminati one was the best out of the 5, if that tells you anything.
Yeah, it was just broke my mind a little bit seeing your post about that. Just this exists, and also, of course, this exists. Why wouldn't it exist?
Yeah, there was like there was a bunch of reviews that were just like, yeah, so this is a thing that apparently got made, but
Uh,
not talking about that this week. We're gonna be talking about Lucio Fulci's Gates of Hell trilogy, which
that's so
all
beautiful.
slaps.
Yeah, I these movies were sort of my entry point into Italian horror, and so they've been with me a long time.
It's interesting because it like I I didn't dive real deep into like Italian horror until last year, a little bit the year before, where I had seen like I for some reason have owned a House by the Cemetery for like I don't know since like 98 on DVD or some shit because the stores near me when I lived in Ohio, like we had like Targets and shit like that like during Halloween would get all of those super cheap, like here's 3 kind of public domain horror movies or whatever.
Right.
And I had bought like a bunch of them, not knowing what like most of the shit was.
Yeah.
And like House by the Cemetery was on one of them, so I've like that was the one Fulci movie I think I'd seen for a long time.
Right.
And then I'd seen like I had Suspiria, like was like just a blind buy when DVD stores first opened because I was like, oh, this looks interesting.
Yeah.
And then like I don't know, the last like 2 years I started diving like deep into like all of Argento's other work, which is
It's like there's no bigger dichotomy of good to bad in cinema.
it's wild. I've been like doing another rewatch because I could like, at least once a year. I'm like, all right. I was like Stendhal syndrome is starting to grow on me the more I watch it. So like maybe like Trauma will too, and then maybe
Yeah.
I'll like this, and I'm like, no. Almost everything else is like after like Opera is pretty bad.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sitting here trying to think. And the problem is that it's like two levels of bad. Like some of them they're not great, but then when you see them in like put up against Argento's other movies, it's abysmal. Like I think some of his later stuff like Sleepless and Card Player, it's like they're very middling jolly. It's like okay, whatever. But then when you look at where he started, it's just night and day.
Right. I've the two that I have not seen that I downloaded yesterday that I'm finally going to watch are his Dracula and Phantom of the Opera.
I have not seen Dracula. I have seen Phantom of the Opera. It probably has the most inexplicable set piece I've seen in an Argento movie.
Oh man. I
Yeah.
like it's one of those things where like I feel like those two that I'm like I know I'm not going to like them, but I'm so interested in like what his Dracula is going to be, especially because it seems like it's like everyone kind of considers it to be like the worst movie he's
Yeah.
made. So I'm so interested to see what it's like finally.
Gives me a bit of hope that maybe on that front it'll kind of loop back around again to actually being fun.
I know what's gonna end up happening. So I'm gonna watch it. I'm like, this isn't bad, and I'm like, of course, it's like the one everyone hates. This is the one. I'm like, this actually kind of rules.
Yeah, you're just like, oh yeah, Argento's return to form. We already had that.
Yeah, I keep seeing a lot of people because I know he's got another movie coming out soon, and people be like hyping it up as like possibly a return to form, and I'm like, how do you know? This isn't even shot yet. It's just he said he's making like another Giallo movie.
I think it's that sort of the secret shit. We're just like we're gonna manifest this as his return to form. Put it on your mood boards, everyone. We're making this happen in 2022. Argento makes a good movie again.
But yeah, so like especially last year over the summer, I dived pretty deep into Fulci's like horror stuff that I
Right.
hadn't seen. And Beyond and City of the Living Dead were two of them that I had not seen before.
Okay.
Because I had like House by the Cemetery and Zombie were like the two that I was mostly familiar with. I'd seen his
Right.
Black Cat, and then almost anything else, his horror stuff, I had not seen.
Hmm.
And so, like, I'd watched them, but they were like kind of in the middle of this long binge of other Italian shit where they just kind of like blended in a little bit in my
Yeah,
brain.
that's kind of why I actually love Italian horror, especially the jolly. Is they're so ludicrous and the plot twists are so out of nowhere that when I watch them, I'll always binge like at least like five or six over a few days. And so I can rewatch these movies over and over again because I forgot who's the killer in every single one or what the twist is. Because it's like when it finally happens, it's like, oh, that's this movie. I didn't expect that. And so it's great. It's like watching it for the first time over and over again.
Yeah, I'd spent a week where Arrow streaming service had it like all of the 70s Italian stuff in this like playlist where it
Oh,
was all of
beautiful.
that and like mixed in with like a bunch of like the like 70s Japanese like Yakuza movies and stuff. But I just like went through all of the Giallo stuff and like by the time I was done, I was like all of that ruled, but I also couldn't tell you what happened in any of those movies except for
Yeah.
like stuff like like Don't Torture a Duckling is kind of that and like some of like the more weirdo like when they get into like Argento's kind of more
Yeah.
giallo like supernatural shit, but like any of the ones where it's just a killer in black gloves, I
Yeah.
was kind of like, all right, well, I
Yeah.
know
It's like a
some.
guy dressed as a motorcycle rider killing models. That's how many of these movies?
Yeah, and so I don't know, like watching these again this last week, like and actually kind of paying attention to them as opposed or like without the context of like a bunch of other shit surrounding it.
Yeah.
They're so fucking good.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this, the Beyond slaps so hard. It's so like the like moodiness to it, as opposed to it just being like, because I feel like a lot of people, especially like when you find out like the Beyond's kind of like place in like the video nasties
Yeah.
stuff where you're just like, oh, this is gonna be like this wild gore fest because it's up here with like cannibal holocaust and shit, and then you watch it and it's like, no, this is kind of like there's like a pretty decent amount of gore, but it's very like atmospheric.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those ones maybe like Texas Chainsaw Massacre where it hits the atmosphere so well that it feels more brutal
Yeah,
than it actually is.
yeah. It that was the one that especially because City of the Living Dead, like, also rules, but like I don't know, this week like The Beyond was just hitting hard for me.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite of the three, but City of the Living Dead's always been my least favorite until this last watch. It just, I don't know, it hit different this time. Maybe it's because I was paying closer attention than I normally do.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll let's jump in. It's also like I was like just looking at like Fulci's output. It's bonkers the amount
Yeah,
of incredible movies he put out in like a 5 or 6 year span.
yeah,
Because especially like these, all three of these movies are like, I would like are like top tier for me, and they're all like in like probably made. They all had to have been made within a year.
yeah.
It's it's insane. Like I, I
How he meant? Well, I guess part of it was he always worked with sort of the same
yeah.
crew. Like it was the same writers, shot by the same guy, same effects work, same scores uh, through them. So it's just like I imagine as soon as they're done one, they're like, all right, time to start the next one.
Yeah, and I think. Well, no, I guess all three of these they're at least all shot in the U.S. But for some reason I was thinking
Yeah.
they were shot in the same place, but they definitely like it's New York and then Louisiana, I believe.
Yeah, and I think some of Civ Living Dead, I was watching some stuff about it after I watched it like on the disc, and I think Georgia is where some of it was shot, and then a lot of the interiors for all of them were done in Rome.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Because I know like the library for The Beyond and House by the Cemetery is like the same library and shit. So,
Yeah,
yeah. So let's talk about 1980s City of the Living Dead. Uh, one of the like I don't know why it took me so long to watch this because this was like I was like before it became kind of like oversaturated. Like zombies were my shit because like
same, big same.
Dawn of the Dead's like my favorite movie of all time. And I had this period where I was just diving into all of that stuff, and I don't know why this one just like slipped under my radar for so long.
Yeah,
Because, which I guess it's not, it's a very like atypical, I guess if you want to call it a zombie movie, but like I'm on board for whatever these things are, just ripping the back of people's heads open.
yeah, they're like almost halfway between like malevolent ghosts and zombies in this movie.
Yeah.
Like it's very um what's the word? They're very like hallucinatory in that they're just, one shot they're there, the next they're gone, and all of a sudden it's behind you, making you puke your guts out, stuff like that.
Oh god, I was reading about how that scene
Yeah.
was done, and it was like, yeah, the actors just like had to swallow a bunch of tripe and then regurgitate it back up, and I was like, fuck that.
Hey, she goes hard, I guess. That actress, Daniela Doria, shows up in a few of his movies at the time and is always killed horribly. That's just kind of her thing in Fulci movies.
Yeah, then wasn't was it Michelle Suave in the
Yeah, Michele
Carlos?
Suave,
Yeah, Michele, that's right.
director, assistant director extraordinaire of these
Yeah,
movies.
just just I think most people would probably know from like Demons.
Yeah, yeah. And he made some of my favorite like later Italian horror movies when all the masters were kind of waning. He started doing some interesting stuff.
Yeah, I did he direct Stage Fright?
Yeah, he did Stage Fright, The Church, The Sect, and Della Morte Della Mori or Cemetery Man.
Oh,
Like sort of those were four in a row.
Cemetery Man is the last of the Demons movies that I've yet to watch.
It's one of my all-time favorite movies. Like
It's
it's amazing.
it's a movie my partner somehow saw when they were like way too young to see,
Yeah.
and always talks about it. And like I did like a binge of all of the supposed Demons movies,
Yeah.
and like I ended up buying that, and we just haven't sat down to watch it yet. So that's the last one I ever watched. But like the Church and the Sect rule. Stage Fright I watched pretty recently for the first time. That movie is incredible.
Yeah, I love it so much.
And I think like Demons might be like one like it is easily a top 5 like Italian horror movie.
It's the ultimate party movie.
Oh man, like all you have to do is say like a dude on a dirt bike with a sword somehow driving it over movie theater seats,
Yeah.
like just swiping at fucking demons, and it's like the greatest scene in cinema.
Yeah, just the heavy metal soundtrack as he's just doing laps to make sure he gets them all.
And then a fucking helicopter just falls through. A movie fucking rules.
Oh, it's so good.
So yeah, like so they kind of like loose thing tying this trilogy together in the same way of kind of like John Carpenter's Apocalypse trilogy is that all three of them, it's like a house that's built onto a gate into hell.
Yeah.
Sort of not totally sure on how that plays into House by the Cemetery.
Yeah. I've also seen that there's you know, inspired by whether this was by design from Fulci himself or just people sort of retconning it, but like Lovecraft vibes. And
Yeah.
some of it a little more overt, like in City of the Living Dead, they're going to the town of Dunwich.
Dunwich.
And in the Beyond, there's the Book of Avon, which has, was a book that, of course, got turned into this horror movie, like Necronomicon thing in Lovecraft's writing.
Yeah. I did like I read a bunch of great at IMDb. Who fucking knows what the trivia on that is, whether it's true
Yeah.
or not. Was like that Fulci like knew he was going to be filming a bunch of stuff in America, and I think like was doing this movie, and it was just like I kind of want to do more movies about the gate. Like I want to make a trilogy called Gates of Hell, and
Yeah.
just went from there and just like put together some just like a rough script for the other two and just went and filmed them.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the idea of he's like, I'm making a cinematic universe of just vibes. That's what I'm doing.
I would make a cinematic universe that just for some reason the same actress lives in a house that
Yeah.
has a fucking portal to hell in it for some reason.
Oh, yeah. Catch her on a call. She gets the business through these movies.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah. I mean, I guess it could be worse. She could be the one puking guts out that are actual guts, but thankfully, for her sake, that didn't happen.
Yeah, she's great at all three of them too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, City of the Living Dead. A priest hangs himself and then just shows up and stares at people as they puke their guts out.
What a great fucking
I
concept.
know.
I was so into that.
It rules. Like, it seems like not that I assume he made any real money off this, but it seems like a pretty easy payday for that
Yeah.
actor.
It looked like it, didn't bomb, but it didn't do numbers they were expecting, which sounds unfortunate, but maybe that's because he was coming off of Zombie, which was like a runaway hit for him.
Yeah, it's some of the stuff I was reading about him. It sounds like most of his stuff did like okay to like enough that he was able to keep getting money to make movies, but like
Yeah.
outside of like Zombie and I think maybe Don't Torture Duckling, he wasn't like a huge success until like home video kind of took
Yeah.
over. Which,
Yeah, his later career was sort of like going to conventions up until his death, that kind of thing.
that's such a bummer.
Yeah.
Especially like how he's kind of like viewed today now that he's gone.
Yeah.
Also was
I would-
very thrilled to find out that he was very much a leftist.
Yeah, I guess in school he was like in the Communist Party, just getting up to trouble in like his post-war Italy, sort of before the Years of Lead kicked off, where you had they said it was like far left terrorist groups fighting far right terrorist groups, but it seems a lot muddier in that it's like, no, it's far right terrorist groups pretending to be left to try and sow discord.
Yeah, checks out.
Yeah. And it's funny because he was like, at least earlier in his life, an avowed communist. So there's this little riff in City of the Living Dead early on that I found interesting in the graveyard, where in the background there's this huge gravestone that just says Marx on it. As if, Karl Marx buried in Georgia. That tracks.
Yeah, where else would
but
he be buried?
the two gravediggers are just like digging the plot to put the coffin that has Katrina McCall in it, not realizing she's not dead. And they don't bury her completely. They put the coffin in and then just walk away with this open grave. And they're just like, the guy's like, you're not going to leave it like that. They're just like union hours. And it's like, that's interesting that you'd make that riff given your your background.
Yeah, that joke rules. Like, because
Yeah.
like also like, I could see that happening on like a daily basis anyway, where they're just like,
Yeah.
yeah, fuck it.
It
Um,
very much reminded me of the work, the way businesses seem to work when I was in Italy. Just sort of, I'm closed because I'm done.
yeah,
See you tomorrow, maybe.
yeah. I know there's just a dead body there, but you know, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Bye.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
Uh, yeah. The atmosphere of this movie rules. Like, I love how just overly foggy like most of this movie is.
Yeah.
And then you get like the kind of uh weird American cop, like like overly American cop Peter,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just
Christopher George, who
yeah,
shows up in a slew of these movies.
who I believe I read did not get along with Fulci like at all.
Nope, not at all.
See, I had like some story about like, Fulci was known for smoking a pipe and stuff, and that like he apparently, I guess, played a prank on him by filling his bag with his pipe and tobacco with the maggots
Yeah,
from this. Is so gross.
yeah. I also read a tidbit going off that where he's like, and some have speculated that's what got Fulci sick and eventually killed him.
I think
And it's like,
Fulci would
I'm not,
claim
I,
that that's the reason he had health issues later in life, that is he accidentally smoked some maggots.
I smoked some worms. Like I'm no entomologist, but I didn't know that's how like severe diabetes formed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why we haven't been studying that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that maggot scene rules too. I feel like most
What
of
else
this is
so
just gonna
much?
be like, man, that scene fucking rules.
That is how the trilogy just works. There's even the parts that don't work are still batshit enough that they're great anyway.
Yeah, that's how I feel about most of like House by the Cemetery, where I'm just like, well,
Yeah,
this doesn't make any sense, but this looks cool as hell.
yeah.
Um, the so you might know this. So I don't own any of these. Well, I own House by the Cemetery, but it's one of those DVDs that has like zero extras on it.
Right.
Like, I don't know why. I feel like the explanation for this effect is probably pretty simple, but I don't understand it. So, the scene where the priest shows up and the woman like just vomits up her insides,
Yeah.
like she's looking at the camera fine and then just starts like crying blood.
Yeah, that is one of my all-time favorite effects in a movie, just because of how convincing it's pulled off. Like, and I didn't read too much specifically on this movie, but as also having done effects design, there are products today you can get just called eye blood, and it's just like a dropper you put in your eye, and that can happen. Like you can either make your eyes look bloodshot or put in enough that'll just pour out, and it's eye safe. And I imagine, well, actually, given that it was Italy, I imagine they just said fuck it and just had two tubes hidden by her hair, like at the corner of her eyes, and just dumped fake blood in her eyes, watered down. Great way to get like a eyeball yeast
Yeah,
infection or something
that
with the
sounds
amount of
terrible.
sugar you get in fake blood. But you can actually get eye safe fake blood. I hate working with it though, because as soon as you open it, it's like use it within 30 days or you can't put it in your eyes. It'll expire.
Yeah.
And it's like this big jar, and it's like, I need it for one shot. This sucks.
I don't know, like that effect out of everything in this movie like captured my imagination for like a day, where I was like, how the fuck did they do that? Like, it's showing her like face for like a solid like 10 seconds before anything happens, and then all of a sudden she's just crying blood. I was like, I don't understand this, and it seems like it's probably so simple of an explanation, but like I do not get it.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to figure out how to do that, because this is probably the best I've seen that sort of tears of blood thing in anything, was that moment in this movie.
Yeah, it's great. Like that whole scene effects wise. I feel like this movie probably out of the three has the best effects work.
100%. That it feels like almost a magic show
Yeah.
more than anything else. Like the drill scene was ridiculous.
Yeah, that I think that was a scene that I remember seeing in like a music video that I had no idea where it came from.
That does not surprise me. Just like
The,
some necrophagia music video or something where
the,
it's just like, let's get the hardest gore scenes and smash them together.
there was like a local, like cable access channel in Ohio when I was growing up that like at every Saturday night there would be like an hour where somebody would play like punk videos and there was one that was like metal videos.
That sounds so fucking good.
Yeah, and like it would be like the same 20 videos almost every week, for like a period of time, but I'll watch it every week. And I remember like I don't know who it was. It was some weird like skinny puppy-ish industrial band that had a video that it was literally just shit like that where there was like one scene that stuck with me that I don't know what movie it's from, where it's like a bandsaw that just like cuts a dude's head in half.
Um, that is probably Intruder.
Okay.
Not Sam Raimi. He produced it. Scott Spiegel from like that whole like Evil Dead
Right.
creative team. He directed it. It's got actually Sam Raimi and Ted Raimi are both in it as characters, and they're great in it. But it's a slasher movie in a grocery store. I would have friends that worked at the grocery store with me over just to show them this movie.
I've always seen like I know what that movie is. I've just never seen it cuz I barely care about slasher movies.
Fair enough.
So like
This one's great because it's goofy and the effects are incredible.
yeah, if that's the movie that possibly has that scene, I'm definitely going to give that a watch then.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah, that's the only one I can think of with that. Like sort of like the big meat saw on the table just going right through the side of his head.
yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be
Yeah.
Intruder. And if it's not, I really want to know what movie it is.
I'm gonna have to figure out what band made that video because I think about it like once a month, where I'm like I'm just like man, I feel like that video made like especially in the fledgling early days of the internet, being like, okay, I'm gonna search like hacksaw to face or whatever and see and find just like the worst shit I'm not looking for, but trying to find these movies these came from.
Yeah. The Wild West days of the internet. Well, did we ever get out of that?
No, it's somehow worse now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that drill scene is incredible.
Yeah, it's because like he always does these things where it's great stage scene and then the camera in Fulci fashion just lingers. And in this one in particular, the effects are so solid that even though it's lingering on it, it's not immediate like, oh, that's how they did it. You just kind of sit there going, hold up.
Yeah, and it's just like I feel like he was specifically good with because I like a lot of the time like the effects, especially when you get into like the Beyond, like some of them like aren't great,
Yeah.
but like they're so gross that like it doesn't matter.
You're willing to overlook it, like the very clearly rubber spiders in the Beyond that look so hokey, but you're like, this. Uh, okay, yeah, wow. That seeing what happened to that dude's face, I don't really care. You could told me that like sentient rubber spiders from a Halloween store killed him, and it would still work.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
that's the scene I'm fucking fully ready to talk about. It's like the mannequin head in it is so bad, which is funny because I saw something about how there was going to be some like one of his like patented Igor scenes in House by the Cemetery, but he was like the effect didn't work. It looked too fake, and I was like, have you seen
It's like holy shit.
like it
That
had
bar must be low.
it had to have been like just a straight up like mannequin head from like a fucking
Yeah.
department store, and that's it.
It's so funny how some of his later movies, like even in his golden period where he had the budgets, just didn't look as good as earlier ones. Like I was rewatching Zombie 2 or Zombie and the wooden splinter scene. That is one of the most convincing mannequin heads I've seen, or like fake heads I've seen in one of these movies, just for how they lit it and shot it and dressed it. It wasn't nearly as that is so obviously a rubberhead as say The Beyond was.
Yeah, and there's some stuff like the again the scene where the woman's like just throwing up her intestines, like even like when it like kind of like the way he cuts on
Yeah,
things, like all like it happens so kind of like quickly that you don't notice it, that like because like it was like when it's full face it's actually her, and then it's like a close-up on the mouth that's blatant like a mannequin that they're just like pushing gross
yeah,
shit out of. But like you have to be like really paying attention to like notice the difference in that scene.
yeah. Because like you're focused on the real guts, right?
Yeah.
Because yeah, I wouldn't even know if I noticed the first time I've seen it. Whereas I've seen this movie so many times that now the switch is obvious. But like that's sort of the home video effect on these movies that came out before that was a thing. It's like, hey, they're gonna see it once in a theater. We just have to sell it the one time.
Yeah. What fucking the glory days.
Yeah, if I had like a time machine and could go back to any era to make movies, it would be then.
Yeah, and I always just think about how wild it had to have been to be a filmmaker in like the 70s and 80s in like Italy, where you could just be
Yeah,
like, I don't know, this movie, let's just fuck it, Aliens 2, that's what it is. Like
I just I love the audacity of it all.
um yeah, the City of the Living Dead, like I kind of like you said earlier, like this was kind of my least favorite until these watches. And
Yeah,
it like it's probably, I don't know, it's hard between like House by the Cemetery's got so much like nostalgia for me, just having
right.
been the one I've seen so much, but I don't know, this movie like jumped up a lot. Like the
Yeah,
the effects rule, like the story's pretty cool. All of like the whole ending when they're in that like weird catacombs and shit.
that was some of the best set design I've seen in one of these movies when they're like
Yeah.
below the cemetery, and so the ceiling or the roof or whatever of the cave they're in is a bunch of broken coffins and bodies hanging down, like the cemetery's collapsing from beneath. It's just so fucking good.
Yeah, like I feel like all three of these specifically, like the the set design at all three of them is just the best. Like
Yeah.
even just down to like the houses he picked of
Hmm.
these just obviously houses that have been around since like I don't know the 20s or something.
Yeah.
Like it all just looks great, especially when you get into like the Beyond and like the house for a House by the Cemetery.
Oh God, yeah. I was just like looking at the house by the cemetery. I'm thinking, you know what? If I could get a good rate, I wouldn't care that there's a murder Frankenstein
I
in the basement.
wouldn't care that there's just a tomb in the fucking kitchen for some reason.
Yeah. I just also I guess we'll come back around to it when we get there, but Freudenstein.
What a perfect name.
Jesus, it's like the creepy sex pervert version of Frankenstein.
He like I feel like the smartest thing he did as a filmmaker was give up on the idea of calling that movie Freudenstein.
Yeah.
um
That sounds like a different movie.
yeah. Yeah, do you have anything else on City of the Living Dead?
Um I think the score absolutely fucks.
Yeah.
Score is so good. I was not too hot on the overly weird synth scores of a lot of these Italian movies in the 80s for the longest time, but I've come around, and the score on this is so solid. And it's interesting because you could tell that the movie the guy did before was zombie, because a lot of the themes are sort of variation. They almost feel like B-sides that were like, oh, I made all these tracks for zombie. We used half of them. Let's start work. Let's go from there for the score on
Was
this.
this Fabio Frizze?
Yep.
Frizze? Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
he did that. He did say Living Dead and The Beyond, but it was Walter Rosati for House by the Cemetery. Um, Oh God, I had something. Oh yeah, the other thing about City Living Dead, two other things, I guess. One is I love that the guy who gets the drill in the head is as that the Bob guy, Giovanni Lombardo Radice, who shows up in a lot of these movies, and he's great. He's the clearly meant to be gay without saying he's gay character in Stage Fright.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say I was looking at his um, filmography this week, and he's in like The Sect, Cannibal Ferox, The
Yeah.
Church, then fucking Gangs of New York somehow,
Yeah.
the Omen
Yeah.
remake.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing, just jumping back to the Living Dead before we depart, is the ending where the kid runs out of the tomb and runs at the camera smiling, and then all of a sudden the two people that are happy the kid survived, their faces turn to horror, and it freeze frames on the kid as they scream, and then this like hand drawn cracking effect breaks up the image, and that's how the movie ends for no reason. Did you read much about why that happened?
No, I saw like a thing about how there was like debate on like how somebody possibly like spilled coffee on the negative or like something, and it was kind of like unknown if it was supposed to do that or if it was like a happy accident.
I like to think the coffee thing is true because
Yeah.
that is like the most Italian thing I could think of. Just this editor goes in with his cappuccino, his cappuccio, and he just drops it and he goes, "Oh, porco dios."
It's like, yeah, fuck it. This looks cool. Keep it.
Yeah.
I also like that Fulci puts himself in like all of these movies.
Right.
It stands out so much if you know what he looks like.
Oh yeah, I definitely remember him in the Beyond in the library. I'm trying to think who he was in the other ones.
He plays a doctor in this one.
Okay.
I don't remember House by the Cemetery. It's one of those things that like he pops up and it's like a Stan Lee moment where you see him and you're like, hey,
Yeah.
and then you just are like, okay, moving on.
Yeah. I love how he just went whole hog with it and did Cat in the Brain later, where it's just Fulci playing Dr. Fulci.
Oh, I don't know if I've watched that one yet.
Oh, Cat in the
Oh
Brain
shit,
is
yeah, it's on Tubi.
it's I highly recommend it. The very basic premise is that Fulci himself is seeking therapy because he's going insane from all the violence he's inflicted on the screen, and it's starting to happen in real life.
Oh shit, I'm fucking in.
It's so fucking good.
I uh I think I had that one like in my queue and then just like for whatever reason just started watching like other shit. Like I think I was like,
Right.
all right, I gotta get away from fucking Italian shit for
Yeah.
a minute.
Yeah, every once in a while you need a breather.
Yeah.
Keep it fresh.
All right, yeah, let's jump to The Beyond, which is again a perfect movie.
Yeah.
Um, I don't like I. This is like another one that, like I said, I'd watched last year for like the first time, and it's just so good. Like that, like specifically the atmosphere of this movie
Yeah.
just works so well, and it's like I've talked about on here a lot. Like I think my favorite horror movie of the last like decade or whatever is probably The Void, which
Right, yeah,
you
yeah.
could tell like this was just had to have been a huge influence on.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Like especially when it comes to like the ending of this movie where they're just in like I guess hell. I don't.
Yeah, it's either the world's single biggest coincidence in film history, or there had to be an influence going on there.
Oh yeah, I feel like this seems like right up Kostansky's alley. So like
Yeah.
I can't imagine it wasn't. But yeah, this is just probably my favorite Fulci movie I've seen.
Yeah, I'd say the same for me. It's definitely my favorite of his horror output. I just I think any hesitation I have is Don't Torture Ducklings, probably one of my all-time favorite Jolly.
Yeah, same.
So it's I think my two favorites are that, and for Argento, I really dig Four Flies on Grey Velvet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
The shooting style on that is just choice.
that and Crystal Plumage.
I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah, what a debut.
it's insane.
Yeah.
um, yeah, like this. I don't know. I feel like as much as people like obviously zombies a classic for a reason, but like I don't know. I feel like this movie deserves like the love that movie gets in like the general kind of horror base.
100%. And I think it's gotten a lot, which is good by people who dive into this stuff specifically. But I'm kind of surprised it's not bigger, given that like even Tarantino was champion in it back in the day.
Yeah, I read something about like the first time this was on any sort of like, or like the first time, the only way it was like, or the first time it was able to be seen in its like original uncut form was because Tarantino.
Yeah, because a lot of the prints that I've seen, it opens with that Grindhouse releasing
Yeah,
thing, and then goes into Rolling Thunder Productions, which I believe was him.
yeah, that's at least what was on Shudder
Yeah,
here,
yeah,
and I feel like thanks to Shudder, that's probably the reason this is starting to get like slowly build in like a base because I feel like people are just like, oh no, it's on Shudder, I'll watch it.
yeah. That's what my parents are like. So they've started. They were never. My mom likes horror. My dad does not at all. But now my dad texts me. It's like, hey, I didn't. Why didn't you tell me Tammy and the T Rex is the perfect movie and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, so I've like specifically had to tell them like because they just started watching them, just like avoid Cannibal Holocaust. Trust me, I know you guys.
Yeah.
You won't be able to unsee this movie.
Side note: have you seen Ebola Syndrome?
Years and years ago, I just picked up the Vinegar Syndrome release, and I'm so excited to see it because this is one of the most insane
Yeah,
movies.
I finally watched it yesterday for the first time, and
God.
holy shit!
Yeah, the only reason I haven't watched it immediately is because I think what I want to do in the next few episodes with Arya is a double feature of that and The Untold Story because it's same star, same
Yeah, yeah.
director, both got nice releases this past year. So.
Kit and I were talking about it yesterday, and we were just both like, "Yeah, like the animal cruelty is a fucking bummer, but it's impressive that that dude is able to rip a chicken's head off with his
Oh, right. I
bare
was just thinking, like,
hands."
wait, I'm misremembering this. Well, what? And it's like, yeah, I remember the chicken.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's that, and he's like, the dude is like working in a restaurant and just like is butchering like live frogs at one point, and it's just like it's fucked up.
Oh shit, I forgot all about that. Clearly, I had a mental block to that, or I had a cut copy back when I saw it.
Yeah, I mean, luckily it's like relatively quick
Yeah.
in terms of some of these movies, but yeah. Also,
Yeah.
it somehow ends up being the least wild thing in that entire movie.
The ending of that movie, I won't get into specifics because I don't know. Maybe you'll cover it someday. Maybe I will. But the ending of that fucking movie
It's
is one of like I watched that with an old friend of mine that hadn't talked to in years, but actually started talking to again, which was nice. But we used to always watch these batshit movies together. We'd go to the local video store, 5 movies for $5, and then next door you could get pizzas for $5. So we'd spend $10 as two like broke, maladjusted teens, and watch shitty horror movies in my basement. And I think we watched this at one point and just couldn't pick our jaw off the floor after that ending.
yeah, like that was the one thing specifically I took away from that is number one, it's incredibly funny that he's just running around screaming Ebola. But like
Yeah.
there's a fire stunt in that movie that I don't know how that person isn't dead.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
because he's like engulfed. Like it's one of the most intense fire stunts I've seen, and then he's hit by a car while on fire, and I was just like, this person has to not be alive anymore. Like I don't understand how this person filmed this.
this is like some Running Man Hunger Games shit where it's like I signed up to this for my family.
Yeah. Uh,
Uh,
yeah.
shit.
I immediately like on Letterboxd went and just found like a list of the other like category 3 stuff because I'm like I gotta dig into some more of this shit because this is
That's a genre
fucked up.
I don't know enough about, and I'm hoping more of these boutique companies. I hope they're putting them out because I'd love to see more.
Yeah, like a bunch of fuck, the guy's name is escaping me. The guy who directed Ebola Syndrome, like he's like kind of like how every director in Italy and Japan has a 73 film plus
Yeah.
filmography. Like about 15 of his movies seem to be on like Tubi at the moment. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna dive into some of
Oh
these, but
shit. That's awesome.
I
I'll have
know.
to check that out.
Also,
I,
gonna be bummed out watching all of them still.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. The Beyond from 1981. Um, McCool again in a fucked up house. Just
Again.
not having great luck every time she moves.
Yeah.
I fucking absolutely love the scene when she's driving on just that like empty highway over the water, and just like uh Liz, right? The
Uh,
blind woman?
no, that was
No.
her, Emily.
Emily. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Liz is McCool's character.
Yeah.
Emily's just like standing there with Dickie, just in the
Yeah.
middle of it, just hanging out.
I think a lot of people maybe forget or dismiss these movies for like how beautifully shot they are.
Yeah, and that was like that's the thing. Like the way specifically this movie, like it just looks great, and I feel like I'm assuming most people are probably aware of it because it was on the video nasties list,
Yeah.
and like I get it. Like some of like the effects of this are like especially like a lot of the death stuff is pretty like in Fulci style, lingers on everything entirely too long,
Yeah.
and like
And
uh,
the eye trauma, we get a twofer in this one. We
oh
get
this
double dose of eye trauma. Actually, three, because the spider scene has eye trauma as
I
well.
think the thumb in this one is my favorite I've seen of his. I think it like outdoes the spike or the
Yeah.
splinter for me, because it's just like the splinter just like happens and
Yeah.
it's kind of done. The thumb in this one, and then like the spider one is like so long.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like you said, like the way this one, specifically this one, is shot is great. Like it looks incredible. And
Yeah. Yeah. These worlds feel so sparsely populated too.
yeah,
Like all these shots where it's like, where the fuck is everybody?
and like it, I would love to know what it took for them to get that just stretch of road emptied off, because it's I don't know, like for I guess like when I was a kid, we would go to like North Carolina and like rent like a beach house for like a week,
Right.
and I remember driving over those roads that are like just like a highway that goes like from mainland to an island or whatever,
Right.
and like they were constantly full of people, and I feel
Yeah.
like this one would be too, and like I don't know, there's even
I would be
thing
surprised if they like called in a bomb threat or something. Just like quickly shoot.
like especially like you like even like the scenes where they're shooting like blatantly in like the streets of New York and like
Yeah.
City of the Living Dead, like there's not a lot of people around,
Yeah.
and they weren't like closing a block down, they were blatantly just like I don't know, go out there and just say your lines and let's go.
Yeah, yeah, there's a few cannibal movies that, like one of my least favorite genres. There's a few of the cannibal movies though that always start in New York. I think they're just like kind of riffing on Cannibal Holocaust. But it was just clearly guy takes a camera and he's just walking down the busy street of New York in those movies where they're very populated, and it's like you did not get permission from any of the people other than the actor
Y-
for this movie.
yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense as to why all of these movies are like terribly dubbed. It's
Yeah.
because you could tell they were just filming on a street where it was probably nothing but like construction noise and
Yeah.
car horns and people talking.
Well, a lot of these movies they'd film without sound to save costs and time. They'd just have to set up the camera, and so even if they were in a closed set, they were just like, we're just going to dub it because it's going to be for an international market anyway, so we're going to have to dub it 20 different ways. So fuck it, let's just dub the whole thing.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Um, yeah, this movie has some of the more fucked up kills I've seen.
Yeah.
Like the spiders is just so long, and like I think the sound effects doesn't help.
Like little rusty tricycles
Yeah,
that like the little jigsaw ass puppet would be riding in on.
it's so weird and it's so unsettling and just a bummer.
Yeah, as someone who has a tarantula, I have never heard that weird noise when it's walking, just as like
I just picture you watching this and like side eyeing it, like,
yeah, I've got the boom mic. It's like move, move, damn it.
yeah, I know what you do at night. I hear it, and I'm like, oh god, it's the beyond.
But isn't that set piece just like so indicative of what Fulci was doing, where the guy finds the book on the top of the ladder and a lightning crack makes him fall off and break his neck? And that is where most of these sort of, because this movie at times feels like a haunted house movie too. Like that's where most of those sort of American haunted house movies would end. Like dun dun, broke his neck, go to the next scene. Whereas he's not dead, and then we get like 10 minutes straight. It feels like of just like, hey, apparently there's tarantulas everywhere in this little house, this library.
It like the like one of them like pulls a fucking like the eye sort of out,
Yeah,
like one of them like crawls in the guy's mouth and just starts pulling his tongue apart.
yeah. These spiders were on a mission.
It it's such a bummer.
Yeah, it's a severely fucked up scene. It's funny remembering all the gore scenes in this movie. Um, this was I can't remember if this or Suspiria was the first ever Italian horror movie I've seen. It might have been this one, and I remember when I finished watching it as I don't know, I was like fucking 13 or some shit, um, thinking that was okay, but it would have been better if it wasn't so violent. And it's like, oh, I was so precocious then. How the tides have turned.
It's really interesting because I think the first one that I really remember was Suspiria, and I
Right.
remember like the first time I watched it, I watched the first like the opening and I was like, I can't watch any more of this.
Yeah.
Like, because like the thing that haunted me for so long was like you see the heart and then the knife go in directly into the heart,
Yeah.
like it's like the whole chest is like ripped open somehow, and I was like, oh, I hate this. I do not like this. And now I'm like, yeah, this movie's a fucking masterpiece. Like, what was I
Yeah.
thinking?
And I think with the shit, the goalpost shifting and like stuff just not being aired on TV, like you have to select to watch it on streaming, things have gotten publicly grosser, like by a wide margin. Like I look at the shows that are on now and they're extremely graphic, and I'm thinking, I wonder if the thrill of turning on a movie like Suspiria and just being completely floored by what's on display, I wonder if that thrill is kind of like a fading thing or not for people that are first experiencing these kinds of movies.
Yeah, I'd be interested in like, I mean, I can't. I imagine Dawn of the Dead doesn't hold up for somebody that's spent 12 years watching The Walking Dead on TV.
Yeah, yeah. That it's so funny because like again, that was that was probably the goriest zombie movie I'd seen when I saw it, and I watch it today and it still is works so much. But I'm wondering if I saw it for the first time today, what would I think about that aspect of it?
Yeah, but like, why are these zombies blue? This
Yeah,
makes no
why
sense.
why are these zombies barely blue?
Yeah.
That dude just like fell in the fountain and now he's not blue anymore.
God, fuck a masterpiece.
It's so good.
um, the yeah, the spider scene's fucked up. I love the scene when the mom and that little girl go to like the hospital.
Oh yeah, the classic warning painted on the wall: "Do not entry."
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, the sign says "Do not entry" above the door when the dude's slowly wheeling the stretcher past the little kid.
That rules.
I love it. They're just
um,
like good enough.
the like the weird bubbly sound of like I guess acid falling on this lady's face,
Yeah,
like, is another one that like I feel like without the sound effect would not work as well as it does, but the sound effect is so bizarre, especially because
yeah.
again, like, there's no ambient sound behind it. So it's just this weird, like, it's kind of like Inferno when like the woman goes swimming into like, that weird flooded room and it's just like bubble noises and you're just
I
like,
love the sound design on that
yeah,
sequence.
same.
It's so good.
And like, I don't know, like the no ambient noise behind this scene where it's just like a weird sizzling and then like a bubbling noise, like, again, like kind of like in Inferno, it almost sounds like the same thing where it's just like bloop 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 bloop, and you're
Yeah,
just like,
just like the world's weirdest bong rip.
that doesn't make any sense for what's happening, but it somehow makes this scene even more disturbing than it was.
Yeah, and it's this movie, like you hear people, because I think of that scene where it just happened. She's just like, I've got to go look at the body, dress the body of my husband, and then the jar falls and melts her face. Like people talk about movies having sort of dreamlike qualities or sort of nightmare logic, dream logic, and I think this movie is one of the best examples of it really committing to that.
Yeah, because I do feel like a lot of stuff in this movie happens without a real explanation, but it also doesn't need it.
Yeah, exactly. Like the whole everything is fucked, and so these things can just happen. Like there's no explanation for why the last 20 minutes is straight up a zombie movie, but you go with it.
Yeah. And again, it's like I feel like it's the same thing of how like the same kind of aspect that I love about The Void is you're just kind of like, I don't know, I guess something's happening and it's this doctor's fault, but I'm just like, I don't, it doesn't make any sense, but fuck it, it looks great and it rules, so I'm in.
Yeah. I really appreciate movies that just don't feel the need to necessarily explain, like not necessarily like willfully obtuse to the point of like you are trying to be like, some movies they come across almost as pretentious when they do that.
Sure.
But I'm a big fan of just, don't fill in every gap. That way I don't have to sit through a 3-hour movie. I can just like enjoy my scant 80 minutes and call it a day.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know, I like thinking about these movies, and if every little detail is plotted out, there's not much to sit and think about.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of a movie just being like, I don't know, it's supernatural.
Go with it.
Yeah, just deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's this.
um what oh like I really liked, like I didn't pick up on it until after, like the first time I watched it and after I was like reading a little bit about it. So when Emily's character gets killed by her like seeing eye dog.
Which is a thing that happens in at least 2 other Italian movies of the time. A blind person throat ripped out by their seeing eye dog because spooky shit is happening.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It's a thing in these movies.
I feel like all of these directors just like talked to each other all the time for some reason. We're just like, yeah, I'm doing this thing. And they were just like, oh, I'm gonna do that too.
Yeah.
But I guess like a lot of people were like upset about that scene, and then
Really?
Fulci was like, like again, IMDb trivia, take as you will, but like the fact that it's like the dog, like I guess the way Fulci designed it was that it was supposed to be like a see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil thing.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, which like once I read that, I was like, oh, okay, like I kind of like this scene even more now. Like that's a interesting take, whether it's true or not.
That one for me might be the most brutal violence in the movie, for just like how much it's like Niagara Falls of blood coming out of her head kind of thing. And also there's it feels like there's a little more callousness in it. Just like a blind woman trapped in the house while spooky things are going on, and her dependable dog that she's relying on to save the day turns on her. It's like it's cold in a way. And I don't think that makes it a bad scene. I think it makes it an effective scene.
Yeah, and I think she sells it really well.
Yeah. She's great. Cinzia Monreale, she plays the dead body in Beyond the Darkness that gets finger blasted repeatedly by the main dude because it's a fucked up movie.
Yeah, I watched that last summer too, and leave it to D'Amato to just
D'Amato
do
is
the most.
Yeah. But yeah, Emily in the house when she first brings Liza back. Okay, that scene's ridiculous because you hear the voiceover and the piano score going. And then it cuts into the house, and Eliza's sitting on the couch awkwardly as Emily's playing the brooding score on the piano for her. It's just like that's a fucked up thing.
The voiceover of this movie is so weird. Where
Yeah.
it just kind of like will pop in periodically with like a line. And
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the opening of Suspiria, where there's that just like Susie Banyan arrived on the 5 o'clock train that was going this fast from Cincinnati. And it's just like, okay, thank you for that detail. Voiceover that never returns.
yeah, I always wondered if
Yeah.
that was like a thing where like maybe they shot something that didn't work and they were just like, well, we gotta explain where she's coming from.
Yeah, I assume that's what's going on. But yeah, that scene when she's in the house, Emily with Liza talking to her, I just like printed a screenshot of that, and that's what I took in for my tattoo appointment as a reference photo. It's like I just want that,
Oh, that's
and
sick.
yeah,
I've always
yeah,
like I've always seen that image of like Emily with the dog just on the highway. And I don't know, for
yeah.
some reason that image specifically just is so good. Like,
It's probably my favorite image in the movie. It's classic. It's an iconic moment.
yeah, icon. Yeah, I think iconic's like the right word.
Yeah,
Yeah, her death is like I guess like the more I think about it, the more I could like I see why this was on, or like I guess why of all of the Fulci movies this specifically was on
yeah.
the video
Well, it's this
nasties.
and House by the Cemetery, right? So
What?
those two made it.
What? House by the Cemetery, I kind of don't understand being on there, but
Most of the movies on that list, I don't understand why
yeah.
they're on.
Um, yeah, that's right. Because I was reading some shit about how, like, I guess, like, especially like in Germany, it was like impossible to see House by the Cemetery. I think for the longest time, or maybe it was
Germany
this.
is, sorry?
I said maybe it was the B. Maybe it was the B. I don't know. I was reading about one of these three about how like in Germany they just kept having to like resubmit it with different cuts and different titles to try to get past
Yeah.
like whatever censor.
Same thing happened with City of the Living Dead. I think it happened with all of them. Like with City of the Living Dead, they kept calling it like a corpse on a
Yeah,
bell
yeah,
rope, a
that
corpse hanging in a yard, a corpse outside the church hanging, and it's just like all these variations of titles that get more and more ridiculous.
just call it like anything that doesn't have a corpse and hanging in the title, and it might do a little
Yeah.
better.
Well, I was kind of like England. Anything with for the video nasties, anything with cannibal in the title, they just like went after, including movies that it's like Cannibal Man. It's not really about cannibalism. It's a great thriller, but like they're like, oh, Cannibal Holocaust was enough, so we'll just ban all of them.
what a what a time.
What a time! Yeah, I lived there on the tail end of that, so it'll always hold a special spot in my heart.
Did you hit your goal of getting through all of them by the new
It
year?
did. The Beyond was my last one. I saved the best for
Yeah,
last.
what a way to go out.
Yeah, so now I'm feverishly trying to think of what to do next.
um, yeah, I got nothing. Like I said, I've been doing this is like the Argento stuff, and it's not going well anymore.
Yeah,
I got through all the good shit now. I'm just like, fuck.
yeah. I'm thinking what I might do is grab well, I have it, but crack open that book, Nightmare USA by Stephen Thrower. That's all about regional horror movies, like the really offbeat
Oh
stuff
yeah,
from
yeah, yeah.
America, and just go through that, like find every movie and watch them all.
Yeah, I was contemplating trying to do that with Bleeding Skull. Put out like the
Oh,
book
that would be quite the
of
undertaking.
all the like shot on video shit. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've been trying to find a good portion of some of that stuff to do on the podcast, and it's just like impossible.
Yeah, I loved the labels that Vinegar Syndrome's partnered up that seem to be invested in the shot and video stuff. So I'm
Yeah,
hoping we'll
same.
get a nice glut of it from them.
Um, Arrow streaming service has like a bunch of like the AGFA stuff on there
Oh, that's
that have.
cool. I need to get that. I don't actually have the Arrow service yet, but probably saved me a lot of money. I'm always like, ooh, I should get this disc. And then I watch and I'm like, why did I get this disc? And
Yeah.
now that they have a streaming service, watch them first and then invest in the ones that you like.
Well, yeah, that was the thing with Arrow for me is I was like, okay, like all the stuff that I know I'm gonna buy is all shit I've seen before,
Yeah.
and like I was like, if I'm going to like buy movies, I'd rather buy stuff from Vinegar Syndrome or Severin, where it's just like weird shit that like no one's
Yeah.
seen in like a decade because it just went missing somehow. And so I was like, I'd
Yeah.
rather just like throw money at that, and I'll just sign up and like watch Arrow shit on streaming. So
Yeah. It's not a bad idea.
yeah,
Yeah. But yeah, as we've once again strayed from with the Beyond, one of the other scenes that I think is so good and such a weird foil to like the drawn out violence of so much of it is when the little kid turns and they shoot her in the face.
oh yeah,
Like it's so fast, it's almost more jarring than anything else just because he whips around and fires a shot. Then it's just a close up of this puppet head completely blowing up.
yeah.
I have a bobblehead of that on my desk right now.
Who made that?
I would have to dig out the box, which is probably packed off
Yeah,
somewhere. But
that's what a genius idea for like a piece of
yeah,
merch.
and it's got a little magnet thing so the face can come on or off to either be normal or blown up.
The rules.
Yeah.
I
Fortunately, my cat attacked it and broke the little face, so I guess forever she's faceless.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like something a cat would do.
Yeah.
I I love the visual of the like whatever contact lenses they used to make the like the blind effect.
Uh-huh.
Like
Yeah.
they look like they just look gross as opposed
Yeah, they
to
look
like
almost rotten a little bit.
yeah. And I think it works really well, especially when you get
Yeah,
that first like close up of Emily.
just like this greenish tinge to it. And not making it so uniform probably helps them sell it a little more rather than make it just look kind of off.
Yeah, and I think like at the end when they are just in the void,
Yeah.
like when they both go blind, and is it David Warbeck is the actor?
Yeah.
Like his facial expression when they show him, like I don't know how to explain it, but he just like looks upset, and like really like the first when they first show they kind of like because they're looking around and they're seeing everything, and then like the camera kind of
Yeah.
like shows something else and comes back and they're now blind, but he like looks disturbed when he's blind now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
it just sells
Great
it so
performances
well.
in these.
Yeah, I
I,
agree.
I I think a lot of these movies they seem cheaply acted, partly because the dubbing doesn't always fit depending what version you watch, but also just because of the way dialogue is recorded for these movies, it just sounds slightly off. And I think people are able to sort of laugh at it as, oh, this is bad dubbing and all that, and kind of stop there rather than keep looking at the actual performances behind it because they commit. Like everyone commits so hard in these movies.
Yeah, I especially this one. Like I think
Yeah.
I can't remember which one of these three it's in. There's a scene. It has to be either this or House, where maybe it's this one. They're like talking in the library, and it might be right before the guy gets devoured by spiders. He's talking to someone in this library, and like the voice or like his mouth moving with the dubbing is so far off.
Yeah.
It's like almost funny.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's you kind of have to embrace those things, I think, to get the most out of these movies.
Yeah, I think like that, like I said, like that first time I watched Suspiria, that was another thing that I was just like, I don't. This is just baffling to me. Like I do not understand
Yeah.
this as like a 16-year-old.
Yeah. Which is why I loved so much seeing the editor, how like for the first sequences, maybe the whole movie, it's been a while since I've seen it, they straight up dubbed English onto English
Yeah,
just to give it that sound.
yeah.
And it's like this is
It's
perfect.
it's the whole movie.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think maybe I noticed it the most the scenes with like Tristan Risk and the guy in the theater watching the movie because it was just so overwrought.
That movie is so good.
I love
It's
that movie. I love it every time I see it. I love it more.
such a great like send up, while also being like this genre rules.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else on the Beyond?
Once again, I think the score is amazing, and I think other than a lot of his other movies, which also have great scores. This one really hits that dread nicely. Like it fits very well with the atmosphere in that everything's so downbeat in this slightly off way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I I don't like. I feel like Frise was like it's like always like a name that I would always see, but like I would like kind of never paid a whole lot of attention to because it was just like I don't know. You have like Carpenter or
Yeah,
Morricone, like whoever like out there. Where I'm like, well, I'm like listening to this, and like I feel like I need to dig more into his work because everything I've like any movie I see where his name's on it, I'm like, this is really good. But for whatever reason, I
yeah.
just like never like think about like him being the composer of like so many of these movies I love.
I was the same way for sure. I did an order from Mondo Records to get a few of the Giallo scores, and I threw in this double record called Fulci to Fritzi, and it's just a live thing of him playing all the different like scores or a lot of the iconic scores from Fulci movies. And when you hear them all back to back like that, it's like shit, this dude is pretty fucking good.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that sometime soon. Like I'm working my way, getting caught up on a bunch of podcasts, and I've been like, I need to like really like I haven't listened to like scores in a while, and I think once
Yeah,
I get caught up, I'm just gonna like dive into a bunch of scores for a bit. And
sounds like a good
yeah,
plan. I love some of those scores.
yeah, this is I for whatever reason, if you're listening to this and you're not like familiar with Fulci and like you're interested, this highly recommend the Beyond.
Yeah, like I think the 1-2 punch of Zombie and the Beyond, like they're, I would put both of those probably in my top five like Italian horror movies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's Beyond just hits so hard.
it's so good.
Uh,
I've watched this movie so many times. I remember, oh God, I watched it a couple times, like back to back, and then I just had to watch Manhattan Baby, which is not even close to the same level, but there's a lot of recycled score in that. And I put Manhattan Baby on, and then my roommate at the time from the other room was just like, "Are you fucking watching The Beyond again?" Like so mad sounding. I'm like, "No, no, I swear to God, I'm not."
I had something like that, except Caitlin got mad that I watched Hot Rod 4 times in a day sometime this summer.
I could think of, especially in the year of 2021, I could think of much worse ways to spend the day.
Yeah. All right, we'll jump to
That's by the cemetery.
yeah again 1981. Just
Yeah, at the Majesty of Bob.
yeah, oh man, just a fucking perfect performance.
Yeah.
This kid rules. The voiceover rules. It's just incredible work all around. It,
I almost feel like the voiceover just got the dialogue, didn't even see the footage they were syncing up to, and the director hadn't watched it and just kind of went for it. Like, say it like this, I guess, and then just like good enough because it's so wild.
like this being one of the first two Italian horror movies I watched, I don't know how I kept going because I was just like, what the fuck is this why does this kid sound like this?
You know what? I think this was actually my second Fulci because I had a DVD set from Anchor Bay it was a double feature of The Beyond and this.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah,
I
I was very confused.
I think I owned this first, but I think I watched Suspiria first if like my memory
Mm,
is correct. But like
right.
either way, both dubbing of both those movies is wild. So but I feel like Bob is the one that like everybody that knows about like Italian dubbing, it's just like the one
Yeah.
everyone knows.
Well, I follow that Twitter account Bob on the Hour, where every hour just tweets a different screenshot of Bob.
What a fucking incredible! Oh my god, what a good idea.
Yeah. And I have a theory about this movie
Okay.
in that, it's a trilogy that seems kind of weirdly put together, where if you try and get too nitpicky with it, you're like, wait, how exactly these movies line up? And I figure since it's, about the gates of hell, and I can't think of anything worse than having to relive miseries over and over again. I think it's recursive, and I assume that City of Living Dead's the first, then The Beyond second, House by the Cemetery's third, and then City of Living Dead is fourth, and that Bob is this Bob grown up.
So, like, I kind of thought about that where I was like, well, like, how is there the like, how is it like that convenient that like two of these like pivotal characters are just a Bob?
Tale of Two Bobs.
Yeah, and so I back that theory.
Hey, I figure, when especially House by the Cemetery, I've lost count of how many times I've seen this.
Yeah,
It's like you start just thinking like, okay, hold on, what if?
yeah. I mean, probably like saying the worst of the three is kind of sounds bad. It's I
Yeah,
think I still give this a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Like it's still great. It's just definitely probably
yeah.
the least competent of the three. I don't know how to put it. Like,
It feels a little shoddy compared to the other ones. And I also think, I enjoy slow burn movies a fair bit, but I think the pacing's a little off on this in that there's less set pieces for sort of a similar amount of time, if not what feels like even longer. And there's just long reams of plot and mystery happening where we already know what's happening. Like it's not hard to figure this movie out as far as like the big mystery that's going on. I mean, the opening scene is Freudenstein killing someone with his weird hand.
the fucking design of Freudenstein.
I love it. Full
It's
of maggots. He's like some Oogie Boogie from Nightmare Before Christmas S
like
dude living in the basement.
he looks like a melted candle a little bit. Like
Yeah.
it's
And he cries like a small child
yeah.
the whole time. That was so unnerving. It's like, oh, that was a great choice because what the fuck?
I have this theory that by the time Fulci got to like post production of this movie, he was like, "Man, I've done 3 of these in like less than a year. Just I don't fucking care. Just finish it."
Yeah,
Yeah, sure. Just have this
I
weird
see that.
adult woman voice Bob. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Uh, shit. What movie was it? So like, Bob had like probably like I said has like the probably the distinction of being one of the wildest like voiceover or yeah like dubbing in like Italian cinema.
Yeah.
There was a movie I watched this summer. I gotta like dig back through my letterbox to figure out what it was called. I'll find it while we're talking. Where they had a person dub a parrot. That and so it was like the person being like squawk, give like Polly wants a cracker, fucking whatever, and it's possibly even like it has to be worse than Bob, like for me.
I want to hear what movie this is if you figure it out because that sounds so choice.
Shit, like I was talking to somebody about it and like I looked it up and I just can't remember what it is. I'll definitely find it like while we're talking, but it like I remember seeing that and I was like, holy shit, like I don't know whose decision this was, but bravo.
I love it. One of the more jarring ones I'd seen, if I'm thinking of the right movie, was Ichi the Killer.
Yeah.
I got that on DVD when I was again maladjusted teenager, and uh, actually that was the first movie I bought when I finally got my own credit card. I think because I was always making my dad order stuff, and so his Amazon account is still absolutely fucked because of all the shit I ordered. Where it's just like it'll recommend law books, and it's also like, hey, do you want these Butthole Surfer singles and this movie called like Cannibal Face Fucker or something like that? It's like, yeah, sorry, Dad. But
I'm like, yeah, actually I want all 3 of these.
I was just like, he's told me about that. I was just like, did you order it? Um, but yeah, Each of the Killer put the disc on, and I think this was back when a lot of this movies the disc would just default to the dub.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
for that one, they made the choice of because there's sort of Yakuza stuff going on, like these Japanese gangster guys. They decided this must have been around when like Snatch was big and Lock Stock was big because all of them had these like mega chav accents,
Uh,
and it was just jarring in this way that I actually really dig in hindsight.
I can't imagine. Is she the
Just
killer
like,
like that?
yeah, just like go clean the boss. She's like, you what, mate?
The movie is called Death Smiles on a Murderer. It's a Joe D'Amato movie.
I've seen that movie years and years. Have I actually? I have the movie. I may not
It,
have watched it
it
because they all run together.
there's a parrot called Rodolfo in it that is voiced over by some person. It, it's
Oh shit.
it's
Well, I didn't have anything to do this evening, and now I do.
you're gonna hear it. You're gonna be like, "Holy shit!"
That rules.
it's it's wild. Like it's the only thing I remember about that movie.
Ugh, God.
Yeah. So House by the Cemetery, about a house with a 2 minute that everybody seems to think is totally normal to the point that like the husband in the movie is just like, yeah, we're not in New York City anymore. A lot of the houses down here have fucking tombs in them. And I was like, excuse me?
And I love the tomb isn't like in the basement. It's in the fucking kitchen or like the hallway or something. And it's like, you guys have a cellar. It's the first thing you talked about.
I
Does this not? Do you think there's like a body, like a very thin guy who got steamrolled between floors or something?
So I like how in like at least this and the Beyond, like these people move into these houses or in the Beyond, it's like a hotel,
Yeah,
and it is the filthiest place I've ever seen. And they're just like
yeah,
living there. Like that in this house and the house by the cemetery has to be the dustiest fucking place I've ever seen.
yeah. I was gonna say like the Beyond. At least it has the conceit of it is a rundown hotel and they're fixing it up. They're just,
Yeah.
I guess, doing a bad fucking job of it. Whereas like this one, they're just like, this works. It's like they walked into a haunted house and just set up shop.
Look,
That's like what's going on.
she number one, if I moved into a house, I'm not going to stay live, especially that house. I'm not going to be like, well, I'm just going to keep this fucking rug or like whatever other fucking furniture there that's just been there for apparently 100 years. But she like removes this rug and like there's just an inch of dust on top of this grave marker for the tomb in this house.
Yeah,
And I'm just like what the fuck? Your allergies have to just be out of
yeah,
control. But yeah, there's just
100%.
a tomb in the kitchen, and it's
Yeah,
a normal thing apparently when you move to wherever the fuck they move to.
yeah. I think they're just like in
Boston.
New England in this one straight up.
Yeah.
Oh, Boston? Okay, yeah.
It's so like that line always sticks with me where he's just like, we're not in New York City anymore. Houses in these areas, they have tombs in them. But I was like, I don't think that's true of anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. But even before they get to the house, this movie feels like a nice continuation of the weirdness of the Beyond in that things just happen. Like when Bob's looking at the store mannequin and its head falls off
Yeah.
and it's a bloody mess. And then their babysitter they hire looks exactly like the store mannequin lady.
Yeah, she's got like cuz she's from Inferno at least.
Yeah,
Like she is such a like distinct look to her.
yeah, yeah. Anya Pieroni. She has like piercing eyes and just this look like she's just like, I hate kids, but I'm a babysitter by trade.
Do they ever so like Bob is like able to, I don't know, telepathically talk to May, who is
Yeah,
I guess is a Freudenstein kid.
yeah.
Oh, I guess that answers my question. Never mind. I was gonna say, do they ever fully explain how she could do this? But I guess knowing she's a
I,
Freudenstein makes sense.
yeah, I assume just, ghosts living in the house.
I mean, it was just another one of those things where I'm like, yeah, this is unexplained. But then I was just like, maybe I just like missed something anytime I watch this because I feel like this is one of those movies that just kind of like goes by, and I feel like as a scene ends, it just like leaves my brain.
Yeah, this is probably the least memorable one for me in terms of like cohesively being able to put it together
Yeah.
in my mind. Which is funny because on the surface it looks like the most straightforward of the bunch.
Oh yeah, this movie makes no sense when you actually think about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Whereas City of the Living Dead, I was always perplexed by because it's almost like a bunch of vignettes that stick together. But when I was really focusing on it this time, uh, it makes sense. It works. It's weird, but the movie flows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I feel like a lot of this movie too is kind of it's like very much like a lot of plot explanation, like a lot of dialogue kind of explaining what's going on, but not totally. And then just kind of like a couple pretty decent like gore scenes or like deaths.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when the realtor comes over.
Oh, it gets the fire poker in the throat.
Yeah. Amongst other places, like just gets
Yeah.
stabbed a couple times and then dragged away.
Well, the lady who pukes her guts in Sleep the Living Dead, she's back in this one. She's gets the knife through the back of her head at the start
Oh
when
yeah.
she's like, it's so weird. Okay, so she's there, presumably hooking up with someone in this old abandoned house and looking for him. But then that's also the guy at the university who was recording all the tapes or something. And then the main dude finds one of the tapes that unveils everything towards the end, listens to it, and immediately burns it. Like, I cannot piece together any of the motives in this movie.
Yeah, I anytime that scene comes up, like I'm always number one. I'm like, I don't know what this little fire thing is, but I want one in my house
Yeah,
because it
just
just looks
I just
cool.
have eternal flame in my kitchen. Just pop it open, do whatever.
But like I'm always like, I don't understand why he burned this tape.
Yeah, he burns the tape that proves something weird is going on, and then runs home and beefs it. And it's like, well, now you'll never be able to explain it.
Yeah. Um, the whole ending of this movie, where you finally get Freudenstein looking like a wax
Yeah.
ball full of maggots.
He's like if someone took like one of the little latex alien props from the X-Files and left it in the sun all afternoon.
That's a pretty perfect like description of it.
He,
uh,
he has that energy to him.
like I do like that this movie has like a pretty bleak ending
Yeah,
because
yeah.
like
I miss the bleak endings of the era.
pretty much everybody dies in
Yeah,
it, which I'm always on board for.
yeah.
Like I don't know, the Beyonds is kind of bleak, but I'm also like, I tweeted something today. I was like, watching the Beyond in like 2022 hits differently because it's like I don't know, this little void area seems a lot better than what's going on in the world.
Yeah, you're like, hey, it's quiet
It's
there.
quiet. There's a bunch of nude
I
people.
don't I don't have people calling me slurs on the internet. I would love to go there.
Yeah, I'll take a little blindness and living in the void. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like Freudenstein just kills everybody
Yep.
and is getting stabbed full of maggots, which I think I read something about how they did all of that and like all of the shit with the maggots in like one take.
Oh, Jesus. Because, yeah, that was probably the most nauseating effect for my money in all three. Well, I don't know. The gut puking, especially when you know how it happened,
Yeah.
is that might take the cake. But it's the maggot slurry is not pleasant.
Yeah, I don't know why, because it's like, I mean, I guess the sheer amount of them, if I saw in real life, I would be like, I hate this. But just like, I don't know, like, I'm not like
Yeah.
super grossed out by like bugs,
Oh, I
but
love bugs. I love bugs. I
like
think they're the coolest.
maggots in a movie is always a bummer.
Yeah. Did you see Dario Argento? Well, you saw a lot of Argento Phenomena.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That fucking ending.
Yeah. Um, it's Phenomena the one with the monkey.
Is the one with the monkey and Donald
What a fucking
Pleasance.
perfect ending, that movie.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I was trying to see, like, if I saw, like, I was reading something about the that scene earlier, and now I don't know where it's at. But like it was something about how like I think they just the stabbing of him with like all the maggots was just shot in like this basically one take.
Oof.
Oh wait,
Well, it looks good.
yeah, the scene where he stabs Freudenstein in the stomach with a steak knife was done in a single take. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you get it and you don't need another one, keep going.
Yeah, I respect that
The
so much.
the bat scene where he's just getting
Yes.
bit in the hand.
I thought this bat scene was more convincing than the one in Suspiria.
Yeah, it's also
Or maybe it's because on a whole, Fulci is less convincing than Suspiria, so it fits.
it's also like an insane amount of blood
Yeah,
like coming out of that hand and that bat.
yeah,
Um, yeah, like you'd mentioned earlier with the other two, probably the weakest score of the three.
yeah. It was the non-Fritzy one.
But I don't know. I kind of like it. It's a little weird, but I think maybe just by the sheer amount of times I've seen this movie, it works now.
Yeah, the score, or especially the main theme, has a bit of that creeping into iconic territory for me, where I just hear it or I'll recall it sometimes, and it's just in there.
It also like when you look at it's Walter Rizzati, I
Yeah.
think. Like if you look at the rest of the movies he composed, it makes sense because this is the only like horror movie on there. It's
Okay.
because like he did 1990, The Bronx Warriors.
Oh, I fucking love that
Yeah,
movie.
movie rules.
I love those sort of like post-nuke Italian movies, of which I have not seen as many as I'd like.
Like it looks like he's done like a bunch of kind of maybe Italian comedies and like
Right.
weird Mad Maxy type action movies. So like knowing that the score to it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
He did a movie called I'm for the Hippopotamus. I don't know what this is, but I'm in.
I love the titles of some of these movies.
Um yeah, I don't know. The one thing I specifically really wanted to talk about this was just Bob. Just
Good old Bob.
yeah, just
I love the callback in this one to City of the Living Dead when Catriona McCall is buried alive and Christopher George is pickaxing the lid
oh yeah.
and he's almost hitting her in the face. How in this one, when Bob is trying to get out and from the cellar and he's locked in, and his dad comes in with the axe, he's just like, "All right, Bob, get away from the door." And then, as he's about to step away, Freudstein just pushes his head into the door.
Yeah.
It's like, it felt like a bit of a subversion on that earlier goof.
Man, Fulci's just we didn't deserve.
Yeah, but I am glad he's blessed us.
Yeah. Like I feel like even the movies that I watched that I was like, yeah, this is fine. Like I feel like are still kind of pretty above and beyond a lot of other shit I've seen.
Yeah. There's one I'm really looking forward to seeing. I finally found like some shitty bootleg DVD of it, and I know it's gonna suck because of when it came out and everything about. Well, it looks like it's gonna suck, but I'm so excited. It's called "The Ghost of Sodom."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, where it's just like a bunch of Nazis having an orgy, die in an air raid bombing, and then they're ghosts. Like so, Nazi sex pest ghosts haunt a bunch of college kids.
Yeah, that's one of the ones I've had on my watch list. I had on my watch list for a while and
Yeah.
it popped up on YouTube for a minute and I
Okay.
watched it and it's like fine, but like the rip was garbage.
Yeah, I'm expecting that out of the DVD I got as well. Like the cover looks like it was photocopied or like printed on just printer paper with a laser jet.
Yeah, I really want to see it again on like a watchable
Yeah.
version cuz I remember it being like interesting, but like it was just impossible to watch.
It also sounds like in that Cat in the Brain movie, which is a fake sort of autobiography on Fulci, I'm pretty sure there's a sequence where they're filming that.
Yeah, that would make sense. I need to,
Unless he's done more than one Nazi orgy movie.
I would say I still need to watch that. I have Blu-rays of Warriors of the Year 2072 and
Yeah, yeah,
Devil's Honey coming.
yeah. Devil's Honey is a wild one. iconic moment in like hand-drawn art is my phone background, which really sucked when I went to get my phone fixed and I forgot it was my background. So he's like, "Can you unlock it?" I go to unlock it and he sees in full view just this like drawing of this dude playing a saxophone into a masturbating woman's pelvis, and it's just like shit.
I've never seen that movie, and I've only ever seen like images of that scene,
That
so I
scene, yeah,
can't
yeah.
wait to see it finally.
That's great. I'm really excited for Contraband is getting a release this year. It's
Oh
I have
shit.
not seen this movie.
Yeah,
It looks really
I haven't seen that either. I don't think. Like I said, like a lot of like I watched a shit ton of these over the summer that all just blurred together.
they blur together. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Fuck, so much to watch,
yeah,
and I'm not complaining about it.
yeah. All of my Severance shit finally shipped yesterday, and now I'm just like, fuck. I got so
Nice.
much Vinegar Syndrome shit I haven't watched yet. I got to get through.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to get through my Black Friday orders from Vinegar Syndrome before my January order arrives.
Yeah, I I requested like a week off at the end of the month. That I'm just like, I think
Nice.
I'm just gonna sit and just watch movies and
That's a good way to go.
caff-
That's been on a lot of my pandemic.
just caffeine myself up and not sleep for a week and just watch movies.
Uh, uh, you should, for your Patreon, live stream it. Live stream the insanity that builds as you do this.
I've contemplated like trying to do something on the Patreon of like not necessarily like a commentary, but maybe like more of just like a watch along of some of the shit that I know I'm never going to get to do on the
Right.
podcast.
Yeah.
Like I desperately want to do an episode on erotic Nights of the Living Dead, but I can't force Kit and Katie to essentially watch porn.
Well, if you ever want a guest back, I have both that and Porno Holocaust on Blu-ray, so I will
I
gladly
will
do a double
I will
feature.
absolutely keep that in mind next time that I like either of them are out of town or some shit. Because I'm
Yeah.
like erotic Nights of the Living Dead is like a top five like quote unquote bad movie for me,
Yeah.
and so I'm like
I loved that pair up of George Eastman and Joe D'Amato.
same.
So good.
I like I'm in the process. I'm trying to find, even if it's just like I have to download them, just like as much of the like D'Amato stuff as I can, because like he's not like the best Italian director, but he might be my favorite because
Right.
it's just everything he's done is just so bizarre and weird and like either like really fucking good or just really bad but interesting to watch.
I also love the fake names he used to work under because he's one of those guys like Jess Franco who has about a billion pseudonyms.
Yeah.
Because like his real name was Aristide Massachesi, and there's a porno movie he did. I don't know which one, but he's credited as Arizona, Massachusetts, and that's just like the best fucking stage name I've ever
That is
heard.
pretty fucking great.
I'm Arizona, Massachusetts. Time to film you all fucking.
like I like when you look him up on Letterboxd, it's obviously not a complete list because
Yeah,
dude had like probably close to 200 movies when you like put it all together with his pseudonyms and shit.
yeah.
But just what they have on Letterboxd under just his name, just under Joe D'Amato, I'm only at 16%, and I'm like, I gotta get that higher.
Oh god, yeah. Yeah. Maybe off air or in the DMs, hit me with some of the ones you're missing. I might have them.
Yeah. I've like I got a handful of stuff coming. I just got to figure out what it was and like some of the stuff I own. It's a lot of it probably at this point is just like a lot of his porno work
Gotcha.
because a lot of the like absurd and anthropophagus and shit like that, like killing birds. I
Yeah.
just got Endgame. I have Deep Blood, which is terrible. I just ordered that Caligula: The Untold Story.
Yeah. Hey, Caligula was ridiculous enough. Let's get Joe D'Amato to do Caligula
I
too.
can't fucking wait to get that box set because I
Yeah.
like it's not a good movie, but I fucking love Caligula. It's so weird.
We
It just
tried to cover that for our 69th episode, and we were so brain dead from all the like weird sort of porn we'd been watching for that episode that it was just like we got about 20 minutes in and we're like, you know what, fuck this.
Yeah.
Let's go outside. The sun is shining.
I just like I can't imagine what two Italian fake sequels to to Caligula are gonna be like.
I am excited to see this.
Yeah. So obviously we both fully back all three of the Gates of Hell movies.
100%. Yeah, they're some of my favorites.
I think at least in the U.S. like all three are on Shudder. Like two of them are on Tubi. Like they're all pretty easily accessible if
Yeah.
you've made it this far and haven't seen them.
Yeah, and if you are a physical media lover, they've all had like really nice releases
Yeah,
too.
they had like I think maybe 4K recently.
Yeah, House by the Cemetery is on 4K
I
now,
think
and
Zombie maybe it's just like a nice Blu-ray package. I felt like it was 4K,
no,
but
Zombie, yeah, Zombie, House by the Cemetery, and New York Ripper were the three Blue
oh,
Underground
okay,
did.
yeah.
Because I need to see New York Ripper in 4K apparently.
Yeah, of that or the Beyond. Obviously, you're gonna do New York Ripper.
Yeah, I would love a 4K of the Beyond because I'm a sucker for that shit.
I have not dipped my toes into 4K yet because it took me a long time. It took me so long to be like to jump into Blu-ray because I was like, I already own all
Right.
this shit. I'm not rebuying it again. And now,
Yeah, I generally try not to rebuy because I did that enough when I was jumping from DVD to Blu-ray, and so I'm not doing that shit again.
yeah, I just like
Too broke.
the only couple I have a couple 4Ks and it's just those like packages like when Vinegar Syndrome will release something that's got like the Blu-ray too.
Yeah, you got both.
So
Yeah, yeah.
I got like the Scanner Cop ones and then a couple other ones that are just I don't remember now, but I'm just like I can't like I also have like just I'm not to the point where I feel like I'm like I need to go buy a new TV so I can actually watch these in
Yeah.
4K. Like I don't really care.
Well, I think that was the final push for me was my TV crapped out and I needed a new one. And so it's just like, all right, I'm getting a 4K TV and player because I'm spending the money anyway. I'll spend a
Yeah.
little extra. And thank you, Costco, for having my back.
I do feel like Suspiria and shit like that probably looks fucking incredible.
Yeah, that was one of the ones I double dipped on, and Suspiria looks unreal. Like I'm noticing things in the shots I never noticed before.
Yeah, I feel like a movie like that is like the thing that would probably push me into being like when my TV breaks out, but like, well, I might as well just dive into a 4K.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, the jump feels less than the jump from DVD to Blu-ray did, that's for sure.
all right, so yeah, go watch anything Fulci did. It's pretty much all good from what I've seen.
Yeah,
I can't back the westerns, but that's only because I hate westerns. So
gotcha. I haven't seen any of his westerns, so
I mean, they're westerns, you know.
yeah.
Next week, I don't know what the hell we're doing. We're still trying to figure that out. I think I'm gonna force Kit and Katie, or at least Katie, Kit's on board a movie called Monstered. We're doing something where I think episodes like the like 190 to 200 we're gonna do like good shit we actually want to cover. So the couple episodes leading up to it, we're just gonna do some bullshit like just absolute trash movies.
Yeah, you got a brand to protect.
Yeah, so I think that'll be next week. I don't know. We're trying to figure it out. Do you want to tell people where they can find Queer Horror Cult and all that shit?
Yeah, Queer Horror Cult. We finally got that on Spotify because I never bothered before, being the lazy person that I am. But most places with podcasts like Apple, Spotify, I don't know where else people get them, but they're around. It's just Queer Horror Cult. We're on Instagram as Queer Horror Cult, and Twitter as well. We're barely on Twitter, but we're there technically. And yeah, we're still doing the every other week while we're trying to figure out Patreon and just what the fuck we're gonna do.
Yeah, it makes
But still going strong. Still got lots of ideas.
the maybe last episode like actually, like, I think you guys released one today, but the Christmas one, I
Oh
was
yeah.
dying when you were talking about Gremlins being
I was
like
definitely on my
anti-union
bullshit.
shit and like
Yeah. I Yeah. Well, when you're covering a movie like Gremlins, it's like, what is there to say about Gremlins that hasn't already been said?
yeah,
So, yeah.
that's
Well, I guess the newest episode that just dropped as of recording this, at least, is we covered Andy Warhol's Frankenstein and Dracula.
oh okay, nice.
Yeah, it was a wild ride.
I've seen his Dracula. I don't know if I've seen Frankenstein.
It feels the most to me like if John Waters made a Universal horror movie.
Oh shit, I'm in.
Yeah.
This is very weird. Kit and I were just having this conversation, but about Paul Morrissey's uh, Dracula and Frankenstein. Where I
Yeah.
was like, I've seen the Dracula, but I haven't seen the Frankenstein, so I guess I gotta watch both of those.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they got really nice releases over the past
Yeah.
year, so plus Frankenstein was video nasty, so I had extra reason to watch it.
Yeah, go listen to Queer Horror Cult. I've said it numerous times on here. My favorite horror podcast.
That's sweet.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me back.
yeah,
This was a lot of
no
fun.
problem. We absolutely do this again. I'm
Yeah.
very on board with doing erotic nights at Porto Holocaust now.
Okay, cool.
Well, fun.
And we've got a couple ideas in the works that I was thinking of pitching at you if you and your co-hosts ever want to come on Queer Horror Call.
Yeah, we're definitely in. I
Cool.
I think this year I've like because we usually unless we come up with like a dumb idea where we're doing a month of this, like we'll usually be like, okay, I'll pick a movie, Kit picks a movie, Katie picks a movie, then the fourth week we'll
Right.
do like I don't know, some bullshit like we kind of all decide on. And so I'm
Right.
like
Okay.
I'm pretty heavily into the idea of like almost all I'm gonna pick as many Italian horror movies as I can for this year and just get get deep into Italian horror on I Hope You Suffer. So you
Well,
will
you need to show your co-host the light if they
yeah.
haven't already seen it.
I have an idea for after we get past episode 200 that I will tell you about when we're done for you and Aria to come back at some point. So
Sounds good.
yeah, go to Square Horror Cult. You can find us all typical places. Leave us a rating on Spotify. That's the thing I'm pitching lately because it's new. So go leave us a 5-star rating on there. Get me that sweet Joe Rogan Spotify money. Lori, thank you again. This was great.
Oh, thanks. Been a pleasure.
All right. I hope you suffer, but why?